we got the best kickoff in the history of MI2. We got Bill, so very excited.
Hello.
Hello.
Can
Good
everybody hear
morning.
me? Please raise your hand if you can't hear me. Never mind.
You can?
Ken, he got it.
Morning. You hear me? Good.
There we go.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the convention. I hope that you enjoy the convention, and even more than I hope that you enjoy the convention, I hope that it becomes a meaningful experience in your life. I remember the first research convention that I attended. It was in Chicago in 1975, and I must have 100 memories of that 2 days. 100 is a conservative number. I remember the young man that I was assigned a room with by the convention. I don't know if hotels still do that, assign roommates, maybe an obsolete practice. But I was assigned a room with an eccentric young man who knew lots and lots of baseball trivia. And I remember him and his even more eccentric friend who knew even more baseball trivia. And I remember the speakers, the presenters, and the old baseball players who were there. Cool Papa Bell was there, and Monty Irvin, and a man named Dave Malarcher, who you probably never heard of, but he was a very good manager of the Negro Leagues. And there was a wonderful sports writer named Fred Lieb, who had been an official scorer at the World Series as early as 1909. Most of the research that was presented there was of minor interest or no interest, but it is only because of one small group of researchers who were there that any of you have ever heard of the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leagues had died in complete darkness 20 years before that, but that little group of researchers was determined to fan their memory and feed fuel and paper to them until people caught on, and they did. I remember the parking garage at the hotel, and I remember the election of officers for the association and the dinner. And I remember the drive back to my home state of Kansas. I was driving an old car that had very poor suspension, and I weaved all over the road to the extent to which a policeman pulled me over and thought I was driving drunk. I remember the conversation I had with the policeman as we were sitting in his patrol car. It was raining. I must have lived about 20,000 days since then, but and many of those days I'm sure I've entirely forgotten, but I have many, many, many memories of that day. People my age, that is to say old people, are sometimes jealous of people your age, not because of the parties or the dating possibilities. Actually, once you get past that, you're damn glad to be rid of it. What we're jealous of is the opportunities that remain before you. Options exist in ideas, or rather options begin in ideas, but I still have ideas as big. My ideas now are bigger and better than the ideas I had when I was your age. But ideas are brought to fruition with time and energy. And as you get older, you become more and more aware that you no longer have the time or the energy to finish your projects. I must have 200 books in my head, without exaggeration, that I'm never going to have time to write. And you become very aware of this. Not that there's anything sad about it. I've written enough books, you know. Understanding, I'll read a little bit of this. Understanding moves forward through flashes of insight that emerge every once in so often when you're thinking about something, usually something else. I'll share just one of those ideas with you that I have, but I haven't had the time or the energy to develop. In baseball research, there's endless debate, which can be summarized as if Babe Ruth was playing today, what would he hit now? Quality of play over time is a debate that goes on, and most people think that this debate can never be resolved. In fact, there is an objective answer to that question, and I know how to find that objective answer. I had that idea when preparing a presentation to a group of engineers about 16 months ago. I've never, in order to do that, it's not something I can do myself. I would have to start a website devoted to it and organize a group of people who are interested in that particular question and explain to them how I'm certain that this problem can be resolved objectively so that we all agree on an answer. But it's been 16 months, and to be honest, I've written a few papers about it, but I haven't really done that much. I don't know whether they'll get done or not. When I was young, the fact that a project would require a couple of decades to reach completion didn't mean that much to me. I wasn't intimidated by that, as I suspect most of you are not. But when you get to be my age, you're aware that, I'm not going to see the end of this anyway, so it doesn't matter. When you're young, you come to understand that I'm sorry, I misread my own page there. When you're young and you come to understand something that you never understood before, you tend to imagine that the world, or all people who didn't understand this must be morons. Maybe you don't, but I did. I may have been more arrogant than any of you are. As you get older, you begin to understand that we're all morons, that the world is so complicated that the sum total of all of those flashes of insight everybody has only amounts to an understanding of something less than 1% of the world. The universe is simply vastly more complex than the human mind, and there's nothing you can do about that. Nobody truly understands the world, not the Republicans or the Democrats or the artists or the scientists or the economists or the Catholics or the Methodists or the Muslims or the Buddhists or the philosophers or the pollsters or the used car salesman. Each group merely establishes a framework for a fuzzy, imprecise understanding of the world, which is what Plato was trying to explain with the analogy of the cave. Looking back at it, that conference 50 years ago was one of the watershed events of my life. I had a day about 3 weeks after that conference on which I submitted an article to a magazine for the first time, beginning my career as a writer. And also on that same day, I asked a girl if she wanted to go to a movie. We were married about 3 years later, and she's here with me. She's in the audience here today. So the question is, will this conference turn out to be a watershed event in anyone's life? I hope that it will. We can hope that it will be. The people who are on the podiums here are every bit as fantastic as the people I met in Chicago, all of whom I still remember 50 years later. But time will reveal that the people who are doing really important work here are not the people on the stages, but the people sitting in the audience. Just as time has shown us that the people who were doing really important work in that amazing group in Chicago were not the people on the stages, but that little group of 3 or 4 researchers who were trying to save the dead memory of the Negro Leagues. I can tell you this, that there's nothing happening here that will change your life if you don't follow through on it. But there are many things happening here that will change your life if you do. Thank you very much for listening. Woo.
you, Bill.
Thank you.
I wanted to take a brief moment to honor one of my dear friends, Dikembe Mutombo, who passed this year. Obviously, his iconic shot blocking, arguably by data, the best defensive player who ever played the game. I think that's pretty disputed, but quick story there. When we won 12 in a row and Yao Ming went down with an injury that year, Dikembe Mutombo came to me. I was a very young GM at the time and said, "Don't worry, I've got this." And we went from winning like 110 to 100 to winning 77 to 69. So he'll always be someone special to me. Very excited to be here. Very excited Bill was here to give the opening remarks for the first time. It has a special history in that he's seen the development of using data from first baseball into all the sports we have here this year. And we do have some new sports. We like to always highlight them. We have rugby this year, and our lead, Rachael, is a top rugby player, which is pretty cool. We have volleyball. We've had volleyball before, but not as an official panel. Cricket this year, and then really special to my wife, Ellen, who is a gymnastics judge and loves gymnastics. We have a gymnastics panel, which I'm very excited about, and we have some of the top gymnasts of all time and the lead of gymnastics there. You probably noticed that we don't have any AI panel, and that's intentional. And part of it's because I'm old enough to remember I've been through sort of 4 big waves where every day brings a new innovation that you have to talk to your friends about. First was the PC and the fast development there. Then there was the internet. Then there was mobile. And now we're in AI. And if you wait even a few days on AI and you're like, oh, I'm using Claude, or I'm using this model for this or that, people will be like, oh, have you tried this? And immediately you're like, oh man, I'm behind. OpenAI has the new 4.5, and now the game has shifted from training time to inference time, which is pretty interesting as well. So you'll hear that talked about on every panel versus having a specific AI panel, just like we talk about women's sports pretty much on every panel, and we don't have a exclusive women's panel, which has always been something we talked about. And then my last thing, just to keep it on time, we pride ourselves on being on time in this conference, which I think we've done every year, which is pretty good. We do, for the first time, have our first MacArthur Genius Grant on stage, and I'm quite nervous about it because I'm pretty sure he's actually the smartest guy in the room, in a room of very smart people. So I'll turn to Jessica.
Well, thanks, Daryl. Obviously, Bill James is the godfather of sports analytics, and this is our 19th annual Sports Analytics Conference, the Super Bowl of sports analytics. And I remember, Bill, at our first conference at MIT Sloan, when you stood up and wrote your email address on the blackboard. And I think how you have been open and sharing and educating has laid such a foundation for everything that we're about here at the conference. So I just want to acknowledge and thank you for that. This year's theme is analytics in motion, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. Most specifically, that analytics is changing everything about the game. From the ability to track players who are moving, obviously, has evolved meaningfully, and you'll see lots of great use cases today, to on the business side, the data that we're now able to see on fans, from streaming to gambling to ticketing, on a very individualized basis. And Daryl touched on a couple of the major trends that we're going to be touching on nearly every panel. Globalization is really at the top of the list, and you see it happening with leagues like the NFL going to Brazil, Germany. You see the impact of Netflix with 300 million subscribers worldwide, and the languages and what happened for the Christmas Day game for the NFL. The other is investing. It's completely changing. Most leagues at this point in the US are now having PE investing, and that's leading to significant change that will impact every part of the sports industry in good and potentially negative ways. College sports. I mean, this is a time of so much change and upheaval and like being at the front lines of trying to fix that. Women's sports, as Daryl alluded to, it's a great time for women's sports. It's fun to watch it, to see it. Bill, I always love your appreciation for women's basketball. We've talked it for years. And of course, AI, as Daryl mentioned. I think for all of you, just in terms of the reach of the conference, there's over 2,500 people at the conference today. We have a wait list of 3,000. Obviously, not everyone can be here in person, so we do live stream this panel. Thank you to everyone who's up already and watching at home. We have 44 states represented, 42 countries, people as far away as New Zealand. We have a huge contingency from Singapore. Any of you guys here yet? No, apparently. They're dealing, oh, there they are, thank you. And our content is without question the best that we've ever had. It's going to be really entertaining. We have 37 panels. Grant thinks it's the most ever. I don't know. I'll let Daryl share on that. 23 competitive advantage talks where you can learn how data is actually being applied. Workshops. There's so many amazing things. I think for me, some of the content that I'm most excited about, obviously, we have, as you can see from the WWE belt here, we have Bella Bajaria from Netflix, who is really going to drive this worldwide support. And we have Paul Triple H here too. And what WWE is doing and has done is remarkable, and excited to sit down with them. We have, Daryl's panel tomorrow, have the nerds ruin basketball. As a one-time jump shooting mid-range basketball player, I would say maybe yes, but I'm excited to hear all of the discussions. We have Asia Wilson, who is arguably the most dominant basketball player in the world. Notice I didn't say women's basketball player. I'm thrilled that she's gonna be closing out on one of our 2 closing panels today. And we have Michelle King and Jerry Cardinal talking about entrepreneurship and investing in the things that they're doing that are changing the industry. And of course, the kickoff panel in a few minutes with Mark Shapiro and Jonathan Kraft talking about sports in 2045. I cannot think of 2 people who have helped usher in to where we are today, and hearing their perspective of where we are going on both the sporting and the business side is going to be really phenomenal. We have 3 live podcasts. Bloomberg's The Deal, A Touch More with Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe, and Pablo Torre Finds Out. That's the first time we've had 3. And it's going to just be an amazing, amazing conference. I want to thank Daryl, as always. I want to thank Corbin, my wife, who does so much behind the scenes and is moderating a panel on the limitations of data in women's sports. I want to thank the Kager team, who all of the great ideas that you hear about here, we are putting it to work. So thank you all for everything. Obviously, I want to thank our sponsors, but most importantly, I want to thank the students who work tirelessly. We have 49 this year, led by Grant and Rachael, and I've really just enjoyed and loved getting to know you both. The team that you have created amongst the students is unlike anything I've ever seen. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Jessica and Daryl. It's a little bit crazy being up here when 10 months ago, when you guys selected me and Rachael to be the co-leads. It's crazy to fathom being here, and you guys have just been awesome to learn from. The late night calls sometimes when we're coming up with content ideas are so fun as well, and so it's just been a phenomenal experience working with the both of you. As Bill said, and as Jessica said, I think this conference is most amazing because of these 2,500 people here, the conversations that happen in the hallways. It's really awesome, and I'm so glad that you guys chose to spend your Friday and Saturday with us. We put in a ton of work in the background to make sure that it happens, and so hopefully it's as awesome as we think it's going to be. Wanted to thank my wife, Sarah. She's in the audience. She keeps me sane when it's those late night calls and the constant Slack messages, but she's a great rock and a great sounding board. We have some awesome sponsors this year. We have 17 sponsors, and 7 of them are net new. So really proud to welcome those 7 for here for the first time and getting to know all of them, and hopefully you guys get to meet them as well in the hallway. Something that maybe wasn't said yet is that there's a great network of past alumni that are co-leads that were in Rachael and I's shoes. And you guys have just been so phenomenal to work with, whether it's I have this crazy question or just need to vent about something that's blowing up. You guys have been terrific and help open a lot of doors for us. Rachael will go in and thank all of our LT, but as Jessica said, we had an amazing 10-person LT, including the two of us, and they really just stepped up every single time, and we really enjoyed getting to become true friends with them and to work with them, and just absolutely phenomenal. And last but definitely not least, Rachael, like, I didn't know you when we were selected to be co-leads, and you've just been perfect. If it was just me planning this, there would be a bunch of ideas and nothing would actually have would happen. So thank you so much for always making sure that, you know, we can actually have a path forward for things, and you've been great to work with. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Grant. Thank you guys all for all the kind things that you have said. Starting off with Grant, he's giving me a lot of credit, but the detail and the amount that he cares about this conference, I couldn't have asked for anything more in a co-lead, and so grateful to now call you a friend and to have been able to spend these last 10 months with you. Jessica and Daryl were doing something right when they put us together. I don't know if they knew it at the time, but it was pretty incredible. I do want to thank our leadership team by name. They were amazing this year. So Jessica alluded to the fact that our content is the best that it's ever been. And that is due to two guys, Jacob and David, who are running around like crazy. I don't think they're in the room right now. But if you see them, they have a badge on, please say thank you, because they have had equally as many late nights as we had. Isabella, Reed, Andrew Yu, Andrew Dugan, another Andrew, and Sophia were 35% Andrews on this leadership team. Thank you guys all so much for what you've done for getting us where we are today. I have a whole list of people to thank: Heinz, the volunteers, Lance, Tiffany, Corbin. Thank you guys so much for your leadership, but this clock is counting down and I'm in charge of rules. So please have your phones off. You've all done great so far. Turn them off going forward. Please keep your badges on. We need to know who you are. We need to know that you're supposed to be here. And please make sure that you're using our app. We have a great app. If you don't know how to use it, talk to anyone with an organizing badge. And make sure that you scan into our panels. We have a QR code this year. We're trying to get numbers on all of you and see what you like, see what you don't like. So that's it from us. Thank you all so much for being here today, and we hope you enjoy the conference. Woo.